Hi, this is Paul Pennington. I want to invite you to the next episode of Pep Talk, and my guest will be Lisa McEntire.
Welcome to Pep Talk, where we discuss the state of Texas real estate market as it relates to property taxes. Here's your host, Paul Pennington.
Hi, this is Paul Pennington, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Pep Talk. And I've got a very special guest that I'm going to ask her to introduce herself. Lisa?
Thank you. I'm Lisa McEntire.
And Lisa, the reason this is a special Pep Talk is this is going to be the first time we've had an opportunity to do an interview with someone who sits on the board of directors for an appraisal district. Lisa was elected, and the election was in May?
That's correct.
May. And she will take office in July.
July 11th, I'm sworn in.
July 11th. And she will be a member of the Denton Central Appraisal District or Denton County Appraisal District Board of Directors starting in July. So before we get into any of that,
Sure.
what motivated you, or what kind of drove you to run for this office?
Okay, well, I am the president of Greater Denton Wise County Association of Realtors, and I also run the Governmental Affairs Committee at the association. And we watch the legislation and what's going down because as realtors, we watch what affects private property rights. So that was definitely on our radar before they even announced the race. So once I knew that the race was out there, I started calling other realtor friends because we're friends, even though we're in Denton. I have friends in that are realtors in Louisville, and so I called them and said, "Hey guys, we really need to, see about getting on here because as realtors, we know about the values, we know about the trends, like we know, what's going on and what's clicking with the market. So if anything, like people that are in the real estate industry really need to, pursue these positions."
How long have you been in real estate?
For 15 years.
So, okay, so you come into this job with an understanding of at a minimum, you understand the buying and selling of single family
Absolutely.
property. So you get that.
Correct.
And you don't know this, but many years ago I became a broker.
Oh, okay.
And it's a long story, and I've never been a broker, but I am, and every 2 years I got to take a bunch of courses.
Yeah.
But when I went through the schooling to do that, the coursework, I will tell you, to become a realtor or to become a broker is extensive, and it's very good. It's very good, and so I have a bit of, like, my little toe is in your big ocean, but I know the education there is really good. And that would be, to me, a benefit for someone sitting on a board of directors for an appraisal district, because you've had training in real estate. You have in your training as a realtor, they talk about property taxes, they talk about prorations, they talk about market value, and all these sorts of things. So that you seem to bring a good background to the table. So then you had this interest, and you said, this is something I need to get involved in. Tell me a little bit. So you run for the position, and you were opposed.
Yes, that's correct.
And so just a little bit about running for the position. Did you have to engage in debates?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had candidate forums.
Okay.
And then we did, just some appearances. Of course, we would have some in-home visits and meet and greets. And, my friends would invite me to come to their houses, and they would invite, like their neighbors. And I would do that kind of thing. But absolutely, we had candidate forums where we were asked questions against our opponents, and we would get up and speak. So, yeah, it's
a big deal because the race you ran in, that's a county-wide race.
It was a lot.
That's not I'm involved in politics at a certain level, and I see people running for, like, city council and stuff like that. But a county race is a whole nother level.
Yes.
So,
it was huge, and I spent quite a bit of money for a non-paying job. So, but I just felt like it was important that, and two, all three of the people that got place 1, 2, and 3, we all have a real estate background.
So there's 3 of you, and each of you come from each of these newly elected people who will sit on the Denton County Board of Directors. They all have a real estate background.
Correct.
Did the opponents have real estate backgrounds? I'm just asking.
No, absolutely not. Actually, we weren't sure if 2 of them even owned property in Denton County.
Okay. So the 3 of you have a real estate background, which I think is going to be a plus. So you and I have had some off-camera discussions, and I was trying to give you a little background, and our viewers might need a little background. In the 2023 session, both houses, because we had a huge surplus at the state level, both houses had identified property taxes as we're going to make some great property tax reform and changes and so on and so forth. And we went through the regular session, and then we got through 2 special sessions. And at the end of the day, it was agreed that we have all this money, and so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to buy down the school tax rate, and we bought it down by about 11 cents. So that helps everybody.
Right.
We also they also created something called the circuit breaker, and the circuit breaker is a provision that says if you have a non-homestead property that has a value of less than $5 million, that your taxable value cannot go up more than 20% a year, and that went into effect January 1, 24. The homestead exemption for the school homestead exemption went from 40,000 to 100,000, which is a big deal. And finally, the 4th component was the creation of 3 members of the board of directors. This applies to any county with a population over 75,000.
Right.
There will be 3 individuals elected to the board of directors, increasing the size of these boards, and you happen to be one of 3 that were elected in Denton County. And like we said earlier, you're going to take that seat in July of this year. So one of the other provisions that when they passed this bill was that they wanted the 3 elected officials to have a little more power on the board when it comes to picking members of the appraisal review board. Now keep in mind that appraisal review board members were not picked by the board of directors. They were picked by an administrative judge, and the legislature's kind of done a backflip and said, no, we're going back to the old way. The board of directors are going to pick these ARB members. Where people like you have a greater amount of power is when a list of people are presented to you, 2 out of the 3 of you have to agree to this individual or this individual for that individual to be on the ARB. So I think just from just my view of things, I think that when members like you sit down at that table, I think you're going to have, in my view, and I could be wrong, a lot of clout. And the reason I say I think you're going to have a lot of clout is because you've been elected. Everybody else that's on the board of directors are appointed. And so I think someone who's elected is going to, to me, it seems like it's going to carry a little more clout when you get into discussions of whatever discussions you might have. So now that this is May and you're looking forward to July, I mean, do you have any thoughts about taking this position? Do you have any goals of what you hope to?
Absolutely.
Expand on that?
Well, one of my platforms that I mainly campaigned upon too is a lot of people don't even understand how the appraisal board works and how the tax rate is set. So they think that the DCAT is like this evil thing and they set the rate. Well, what they don't understand, the city budget goes into it and the school, and that's how they come up with your rate. And, people are mad. And so I think education is key. And what I hope to do is our chief appraiser is Don Spencer, and he's fairly new. And then we have Don Way, who is the new tax assessor. If we can get those people out, like them out in front of people and see that they're human, like that they're people too, and maybe introduce the public to them, have them out. Let's educate the people on how your tax rate is being set. And you know what? Maybe educate people on how to protest too. And give them some tools to work with. So I'm huge on education.
There is a disconnect. A lot of people don't understand that all the appraisal district does, their only function is to set values. Like, I'm going to value your house at whatever. There's a lot of exemptions they do, but they're not involved in the tax rate. The tax rate is set by the county, the city, and the school.
Right.
I think anything that that can be done that educates the public more about, like you say, about appeals. I think a lot of people need education about if, for example, if you own a home, the taxable value of that home can only go up 10% a year. Plus, after you have that, then you have these exemptions that also lower the burden. So I read an article just the other day, in Texas, because county, cities, and schools are so dependent on property taxes. That's just a big deal to everybody. But I don't think what everybody understands is, like, if you look at Texas and you compare us to other states, like, how much of a tax burden does the individual person have in Texas as compared to other states? It's not that high. We don't have an income tax, for example.
Right.
So that's a big deal. But any kind of education, I think, is going to be a major thing. Now, it's my understanding that if you're on the board of directors, your primary function is to, one, the hiring and firing of a chief appraiser. Correct. That's something the boards do.
Okay.
The staff will bring recommendations for a budget. And so if the staff, and I'm just being hypothetical, if they say they wanted $2 million for something, and the board's job would go, wait a minute, let's look at that. So the board of directors is involved in the setting of a budget. State law mandates how often properties are to be reevaluated, but if you sit on the board, the staff, I think, would come to you each year and say, this is what we're planning on doing. This is the reappraisal plan. Right. And so some of the problems that I've seen over the years is when a board might go past what is mandated to be their responsibilities and get into other issues, and it's a very fine line. I think it would be tempting for a board to go past what the law mandates what they do. Overstep. But I think the district that you're going to be on the board at, I have a very long amount of experience. I've actually, my experience goes back to the day they opened their door. Okay. So I've seen all the administrations at the Denton Appraisal District has had. And I will tell you, as we sit here today, that I think the staff does a excellent job. And I think as a whole, I think it's being run very well. And I think more important is I think that it's, in my career working with all different appraisal districts all over the state, sometimes you see appraisal districts morph into things that just seem odd or they different. a good example of that would be the Travis Central Appraisal District. It's been a mess for years, but I can say this, for the most part of all of the appraisal districts in the state, I think for the most part, they're run well, and I think a real important thing for appraisal districts to have is a citizen needs to feel like if they file an appeal, right or wrong, and a lot of this has to do with education, but I think they have to feel like right or wrong, if they feel an appeal, that when they leave the process, they feel like they've been treated fairly.
Correct.
That to me is the most important thing.
Right, and they've been heard. That's a big deal. That's just people want to be heard.
Right. So when you take your seat in July, you're really going to be, because all the decisions for tax year 24 have already been made.
Right.
So you're really going to be involved in what is this appraisal district going to do in 2025. Right. That's going to be and that's not a small organization. They have a lot of people. You have a sizable budget. You have any thoughts about how you're going to?
Well, actually, I have spoken, a little bit. We have to be careful not to cross the line, as far as like what we do talk about and speak about outside of, the office and meetings and quorums. So I have spoken, briefly with the treasurer, Don Way, and also the chief appraiser. And so one thing about Denton County is we have 111 employees. Collin County, I think, has like 150, 160, and we've got as many people as they do living in this county. I think we are hugely understaffed. And I know that means money and hiring people, but people want to be treated fair. They want to be heard. So, we may have to get more people in there, more employees to hear the people, to actually hear what they're saying. So that kind of thing needs to be dealt with, as well as educating the people about what the process is. Also, I think they're maybe outgrowing their building, because if we did bring on more employees, I don't know if you've been in that building. It's very small, so that could be a problem.
It's. I can tell you from my experience, it's one of the few appraisal districts where you have a building here, which is the appraisal district.
Right.
Then you have a building here that's not owned by the appraisal district, and a building here which is owned by the appraisal district. So that's one of the more unique appraisal district setups that I've seen. But to your point about if more people are needed by the appraisal district, you're in one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. It's a very serious
Top
county.
10.
And you've got serious growth, serious development in this county.
Correct.
So if it's needed, it's needed.
Yeah. And so, that's one thing that people don't understand is because a lot of people are coming to me asking about values. Well, that's not part of what we do. We have nothing to do with the values. The chief appraiser, he's the one that runs the employees. We simply, we can hire and fire the chief appraiser. We can hire and fire ARB board, and also we set the budget. So another thing, Paul, just to tell you another thing that went through is that in the legislation that everybody has to refile their homestead. I don't know if you read that. Everybody has to refile their homestead. See, as a realtor, that's kind of on my radar. That was part of the legislation that went through, but I believe the way it reads, but I could be corrected, is that they can choose to have you refile your homestead or not, which that's going to be a lot of money and a lot of man force, to get that done. So maybe do it in waves. I think Tarrant County maybe is doing theirs in waves, as far as like every 5 years, you're supposed to refile your homestead. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of employees looking over that stuff. So that's something that we're going to be dealing with too, because that just came down the pipeline.
Now, it's kind of interesting. I know that you're involved in politics. Now, in Tarrant County, there was a lot of money spent
Yeah.
a lot of money spent
It's a
on the
mess.
race for the board of those 3 seats, and some of those candidates were very vocal about, we're going to get in there and we're going to do this and we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gathering from what I've heard so far from you, and I would assume from the 2 others who are elected, y'all understand, the limits on what a board member
sure.
can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Because in Tarrant County, they had some candidates who were saying some pretty crazy things about, they wanted to cap the value of properties. They only wanted to do reappraisal. They were going to tell the staff when they can do reappraisal. And the unfortunate part about that story is they got elected. So, and Tarrant County is a county that's had they have a history of with issues and stuff like that. But hopefully they'll overcome it. Let me hit you with something that I'm positive, or I might be saying this wrong.
Sure.
But, appraisal districts are getting hacked, okay? And they're paying ransoms to get the people come in and hack the tax roll.
Right.
And
Wow.
it just happened in Tarrant. It's happened in Tarrant County's been hacked twice. Dallas County's been hacked once. Travis County's been hacked twice. Knowing that there's people out in the world who would try to get into a district system and then, hack it and then demand money, I know this is way in advance of you even
Right.
taking, but is that something you've ever, about added security to the system and everything?
Well, okay, so as a realtor, we work with title companies, and Angie Cox, who is taking, one of the places who was elected, she works at a title company. Oh my gosh, she deals with fraud all the time, wire fraud, huge. And as far as it's the security. So yes, that will be very much on our radar. And Rick Guzman, he is also in real estate. He's a property manager. He owns a company that manages that. So as realtors, we are so about the security, keeping people's, personal information safe. So yeah, that's definitely going to be on our radar. And go back to about the board members and stuff and our goal is not to come in there and rule, with an iron fist. Actually, we have talked to the members that are actually there, and we want to work as a team. I mean, we like the people that are appointed that are there. We like the chief appraiser. We want to work with them as a team. We're not going to go in as a united force and we're going to change it. It's got to be a team effort. And I think that's what we just care about the people. I mean, or we wouldn't have done this because we get zero pay for this. We wouldn't have run that campaign.
Let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and should they be paid? I mean, no. Hear me out on this. If you're a member of city council, I mean, it's not a lot, but you're given something for when you attend meetings. And if you're on, is that such a bad thing?
Well, I mean, I think I guess you had given me some history earlier, Paul, about about they didn't want politics to be in this. And
That's true.
I think whenever you bring money into it and paid positions, then I think that's when it gets ugly. But the ARB members are paid. Yeah. The appraisal review board members are paid. So no, I mean, I've sat on a lot of boards. I'm the president of GDWCR. That's volunteer. I've spent tons of hours, and it's giving back to your community and doing what you think is right. So no, I don't agree that you should be paid.
So you're okay?
I'm okay with that. I knew what it was going in. Yeah.
Long hours of work, no compensation.
Yes, whenever I put my name to run on the ballot, I mean, I knew what I was up against. Well, kind of knew. Yeah. But as far as the pay part, I don't see that they should be paid.
Let me just say this, that in all the years that I've been involved in property taxes, I've been involved in property taxes, I think for 45 years. I've been involved, and I mentioned this in a conversation with you yesterday. I've been involved with Senator Nelson's staff and all the property tax laws that we worked with her to get passed. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I think I mentioned this to you before, that in that long of a period of time, I only went to one board meeting at the Dallas Central Appraisal District decades ago, and it was about like making a suggestion to them about who they might, how they might get more qualified people to sit on the ARB. And then I had one visit with the Denton County Board, but that's over 45 years. Yeah. And the refreshing thing to me is that there's, in all the legislation that I worked on, a good part of it was about the board of directors. And as my whole career has been, I represent taxpayers. And I had this global vision, because I do this all the time, of seeing how certain appraisal districts are run. Some are run very efficiently, and most of them, the vast majority, are fair. But then I saw some appraisal districts that were not run. And I never had the opportunity to speak to members of the board. Okay. It was always like there was a barrier, and so I think one of the positive things about this, the new reality we have now, is that somebody because if somebody on the board doesn't hear from somebody who represents taxpayers and has years and years and years of experience, they're relying on the staff, and the staff, let's just say 90% of the time, are telling them what's being told to them is 100% correct. Yeah. But 10% or 5% or 1% of the time, it might not be correct. And I've always had a problem with that people like myself never had access to members of the board of directors. And like I said, the last time I attempted it was in Denton County, and it didn't turn out very well.
I think you have to have an appointment.
So I think that's a positive thing. I really do. I think that's a positive thing, because in the legislation that I worked on, we saw the problem of, if you have a district doing something that, in your view, is not correct, or they should be doing it a different way, and they're only and the board's only listening to the staff, then how do you correct the problem? The way we tried to correct the problem through legislation, we tried to put term limits, and we said, and I'm kind of a term limit guy. I mean, like, I told you before that I sat on a state board that has to do with what I do for a living. And after 8 years, you go like, I did it for free. That's my contribution, and move on. And I really did have a problem with there not being term limits. And I think that, I don't know, we passed, I'll tell you, this is an inside baseball thing. One of the laws that we got passed through Senator Nelson was term limits on members of the board of directors. And you go, that's great. Yeah. But in the, I don't know how involved you've been with legislation, but so we get this thing passed and we think we've won. But after a bill is passed, it goes to the Legislative Council, and all the technical stuff's put in there. And so on the very last page of this technical stuff, it said, well, these term limits, we don't even start counting how long someone's been on a board till January 1 of 22. So that means if these people have been on the board for 10 years, we're not going to start counting till January. And so I made this comment to people at the time. I said, by the time these guys have run their term limits out, it's going to be 2032, and I'm going to be retired.
What's the point?
So I do believe in term limits, and again, I do believe there should be conversations between people on the board. Obviously, they get it 99% of the time from the staff, and there should be some time where they get it from people on the other side. I think that's just fair. That's just fair government.
You don't think that my phone is Not
No,
already
no,
blowing
I'm
up?
not saying.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Oh, trust me, I've heard a lot.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's one thing that
Yeah.
that I appreciate. That
Yeah.
that I think that's going to kind of happen moving forward. That you can talk to a board member, and if there's an issue, give your side of the story
Right.
to it. So
And I have had so many people reach out to me, and I have been so educated in the last 2 months as to the workings, how people are being treated, how people feel. And just, I have learned so much, ag exemptions, which I was raised on a ranch. So, I mean, I know about ag exemptions. I'm a realtor, I know about them. But there is so much to it. That people, and they do want to, they want to be heard. And, if you would just sit there and listen to them, they want to be heard about these things and then, addressed, like, I understand, I get it, or, it's good to hear from you. But my phone does ring a lot.
yeah, no, and I think that's like I never felt like. I mean, Denton County is my home county. I never felt like I could call a board member ever, and certainly in these other counties. I mean, I've had people who sat on boards who got off the board and suddenly started talking to me, but I never had it.
Yeah.
I think that is a positive thing. Well, anyway.
So you think you're going to keep my phone number? Is that what you're saying?
No, let me just. I'm going to end on. Let me end on this.
Okay.
That I've worked in that county since their doors have opened. I've seen all the administrations. And Denton did go through a rough patch, and that rough patch has been corrected.
Right.
And like I was telling you, I think the morale there is up. I think that everything's getting done on time, and it's positive. And historically, I can tell you that I think Denton's always been a fair county, and so those are all positive things. So you came on the podcast. You get an official mug. Everybody who comes,
Thank you.
Everybody who comes
Love
on
it.
our podcast gets a mug.
Wonderful.
And I want to wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I hope it's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
And I hope you and your other two new board members do a good job.
Thank you.
I keep reiterating. You're in one of the fastest growing counties in the United States, so it really
10.
is. It really is an important job.
Thank you. I appreciate you hearing me out and letting me
absolutely.
speak. Thank
Okay.
you.